Most children don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because their brain system, their nervous system crumbles under pressure. We usually tell our children, work hard and you will succeed. But the story of the well known Williams sisters in tennis tells us that this is half the truth. Because when pressure rises, most of the adults are tense. Many children collapse. But when Serena Williams was a match point down in the finals, and when Venus Williams was booed, judged, and cornered, their nervous system, their brain system lived online, stayed alive, not aggressive, not shut down, but just available. Thousands of children worked as hard as these sisters. Most burned out. Many broke down mentally. So the real question isn't the talent or the skill, and it isn't the effort. The real question is what allowed these two girls to hold on in these pressure moments. And the answer isn't in their swing, but it's in their brain, the nervous system. Richard Williams, their father, just didn't train athletes. He designed an environment. Neuroscience calls this conditioning. Indian wisdom calls this Samskara. Deep impression that quietly builds resilience. Modern neuroscience now shows us if regulation is understood early, performance follows later. And before we go further, let me be clear what this video is about and what this video isn't. I'm not talking about trophies, not greatness, and not about raising a champion. I want to talk about what the childhood of these Williams sisters tells us about parenting. Because this story shows 5 things that quietly shape a child for life. We'll talk about 3 foundation principles that protect child's nervous system and 2 decisions that goes against how most of us were raised. If you really understand these 5, your day-to-day parenting decisions would start changing almost immediately. I'm not asking you to remember all of them. Just notice the shift as we go. Here's the lens we will use. First, 3 foundations. 1. The parent holds the horizon. 2. Performance should never carry identity. And 3. Connection comes before correction. And then the 2 contrarian choices. Pressure was reduced early and not added. And parenting was long term and not result driven. And this applies to any child, be it in sports, academics, music, and even someone not competing at all. If you're raising a child and if you want them to be emotionally strong, this 5-point framework changes the way you guide them. At CurioMinds, we use a very simple nervous system lens. Green zone, regulated and engaged. Red zone, reactive. And blue zone, shut down. Because in the long run, conditions matter more than the talent. And long-term thinking matters more than short-term results. Let's start with the vision. Richard had a very clear sense of direction, even years before his daughters were born. Not a vision about winning, but a vision about where he wanted his daughters to go. Richard wasn't a tennis player, but he studied tennis very deeply. He watched matches, he noted down the patterns, and this part really matters. He did not demand results, but he offered exposure. Exposure without pressure. This is what most of the parents miss. Later on, he watched matches with his daughters. He paused the game. He talked about the serve, the rhythm, the angle, the style. No pressure. No do it now. Just repeated, calm exposure. And over time, something very interesting happened. Not something random, but something very predictable. The sisters became one of the best servers in tennis history. This wasn't luck, this was directed exposure, repeated calmly. When children start observing and understanding something without the pressure of performance, without being forced to perform, their brain internally starts rehearsing the skill. Learning happens best when the style stays regulated. In Japanese thought, there is a word called Kankyo. It simply means that the environment shapes the person. A calm child isn't calm just by nature. They are calm because of the environment designed for them. And Richard designed this environment first. Performance was an inevitable output. It just followed. So this is again CurioMinds' core principle. The parents hold the horizon so that the child remains regulated. Here's something that many people miss when they look at the success of the Williams sisters. Tennis mattered in their home, but it was never their top priority. Richard was very clear about the order. Faith comes first, then family, then education, then work or business, and after all that, tennis came fifth. And this matters more than it seems. Because when performance is not tied to your identity, then failure doesn't seem like it's danger. The nervous system stays safe, emotionally calm. When a child knows that the love he receives is unconditional and that his self-worth is not tied to the results and that who they are is bigger than how they perform, they don't panic under pressure. They don't flip into reaction. They don't go into shutdown. They avoid the dangerous red and blue zones and remain regulated in the green zone. They stay secure and engaged. We have all seen the opposite. A child who looks brilliant in practice actually freezes when it really matters in live matches. That is not a skill problem. That's a nervous system under threat. This is core CurioMinds law. Performance grows best when it doesn't carry any identity. One thing that really stands out about the Williams sisters in their childhood was their relationship with their father. They didn't experience him only as a coach. They experienced him as an ally, a safe base, someone they trusted very dearly. There are moments that people may often miss. When Richard was not able to make to a Grand Slam final, Venus dedicated the win to him. When he suddenly refused to attend Serena's wedding, she understood. No drama, no rupture. That tells us something very important. This was not just control, coaching, or teaching. It was just mutual respect. In Japanese psychology, there is a word for this called Amae. It describes the deep safety of knowing someone. I am held. I can depend on you. And this kind of safety becomes the floor for performance. Because the connection was strong, the girls never needed emotional shutdown. The connection kept them regulated, even under intense pressure. This is another core CurioMinds insight. Connection is the shock absorber. And once connection is there, correction happens smoothly. And here's another decision that most parents struggle with. Sponsors came early. Competitions were available early. Richard said no. Not because the girls were incapable, but he wanted to protect their emotional timing. He didn't delay practice. He delayed competition. In fact, he was very obsessed about practice sessions and even what should be included in these sessions. And that difference matters more than we realize. Practice builds skills, but pressure, when it comes too early, it builds fear. When children are pushed into performance before they are ready, their thinking narrows, their decision making drops, and their learning slows down. Richard chose long-term speed over short-term wins. In Indian wisdom, this is called sadhana. Practice with devotion, not fear. It's the process that is important, not the prize. When motivation comes from mastery and curiosity, children grow, they flourish. However, when motivation comes from fear, they shut down. They enter what we call the blue zone. This is the CurioMinds principle here. Protect the nervous system timeline. It's about long term parenting and not short term reaction. Richard Williams was not parenting for the next match, he was parenting for the next 20 years. That long view prevented burnout, protected emotional stability, and empowered fearless growth. Most of the parenting today is reactive. Why this is not working now? Richard Williams' approach was Kaizen. Build foundation first, trust the process, and results would come later. Good parenting is not about reacting for each and everything every time. It is about creating the right environment for the long term. Let's bring this all together. Green zone, secure and engaged. Red zone, unsafe and reactive. Blue zone, overloaded and shut down. The Williams sisters did not succeed just because of skill, talent, or control. They succeeded because the environment, the conditions around them helped them remain regulated and prevented shutdown. And this isn't a one off story. You see the same pattern when we looked at the Polgar sisters, and we see the same pattern in the Suzuki method. Different domains, different cultures, same principles. Children don't rise because they are pushed. They rise because the environment holds them steady as they grow, as they flourish. And this applies to every child, not just prodigies. So don't ask, how do I make my child perform? Ask instead, what conditions, what environment I am building instead? Because that one question will quietly start changing your decisions. Always remember, performance follows regulation, not pressure. If this way of thinking connects with you, this is exactly what we are building at CurioMinds. One decision, one insight, one calm parent at a time. If this framework makes any sense to you, do comment green zone so that I understand.